So there was a GoFund. I'm thinking gun now. There was a GoFundMe campaign.
Don't put that on Terry.
You're right. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You're violent.
So there's a GoFundMe campaign that was gathering funds for the donuts. J Dilla's donut shop in Detroit.
Oh, I heard that.
His uncle started. He was looking for $15,000, which would go to update and replace equipment that was heavily used over the past 4 years. The cost of transporting product, insurance, rent, permits, rent and permits for both retail and production locations has taken toll. Had been taking a toll on their ability to make profits. So I think that store, I actually saw, shout out to the homie, Fillmore Green, Rashid Adi. They actually were performing in Detroit with the Sky Zoo tour, and they actually stopped in there. I think Slade was in there with them as well. So they got a chance to go to the Dilla Donut Shop.
Is it a donut shop or what?
Yeah,
is
like
it?
they actually, they got wax in there. They got everything in there.
I'm going to tell you what
but
the problem
is. But is it a donut shop?
He gets his
you can get them in there as well.
Oh, okay.
So I think the GoFundMe, I think that's a good idea, and I think that should be there in Detroit. I think that's very important to keep his legacy there.
Yeah.
I saw some people saying, well, if it goes, and it's just on my timeline, if it goes under, then it was a good little run. I'm like, nah, you got to keep that in Detroit off Dilla because of who he was and who he was to that city. You say what, Long? In terms of actually needing it to be there, I think it needs to be there.
I don't think it needs to be there. I think some sort of representation of Dilla needs to be there. Maybe it's not the donut shop or whatever, but yeah, I mean, this was his uncle though too, right?
Yeah, his uncle. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's in the family. I mean, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. So I mean, I'm not from Detroit. I don't live in Detroit. I don't know what it means to Detroit.
It means there.
I don't know what it means to the people there. And all that. But obviously, Dilla definitely needs to be honored and remembered for his influence and everything that he's been a part of and everything that he continues to influence. So I'm not mad at it.
I agree.
Yeah. You in on that as well, Spoolz?
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like Sean said, if it's not this, then something else, like to remember him.
I had a conversation with at the gig, a guy he's probably about, we'll call it 10 years younger than us, right? Mm-hmm. And for some reason we were just talking about music in general, and Slum Village came up, and Black Milk, Detroit, etc. And I said, what do you think about J Dilla just as a producer? Just random conversation, we just talking. And he was like, man, I think he was cold, but for some reason I get the feeling that he is like overhyped and overrated. And I was like, have you done your research to actually go back and kind of look at his sound and how much his sound evolved and also inspired a lot of people? He was like, yeah, man, I hear people say that, but I don't know if I actually still hear it. And I'm just like, that made me think. I'm just like, to myself, I'm like, I can still hear J Dilla all over the place. Like, especially if you just go through and you're looking for, certain types of hip hop records.
Not even just hip hop.
I mean, just like overall, but if we want to use hip hop as an example. But do you guys think he's one of those people that doesn't get his just due outside of the people that we would call quote unquote heads? Because I'm looking at the younger generation, people that might not necessarily be quote unquote hip hop heads. And I see certain people kind of questioning his, questioning his legacy. Like, where does that come from?
I think they just don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, all right.
I mean,
just in general,
yeah. I mean, but at the same, and that's not even to sound rude or anything. I just mean like to fully understand what Dilla has influenced. You kind of have to know what he has done, and who he has influenced.
Yeah.
He's influenced everybody from the 𝐀𝐁 to the.
That's what I was. There we go.
To all the Detroit producers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to think of all the Detroit producers that they touch. It's just like talking about like hip hop's from the 80s, it's, you don't have to appreciate and like that person's music to appreciate their influence. And so maybe he just doesn't grasp it. I don't know. I don't see a lot of people clown Dilla though. I mean,
it's I'm not saying it's, I think I do see it. Maybe I see it.
And I'm not
even
saying that he's clowning him, but that's.
Yeah, it's just maybe it's just from a knowledge-based standpoint, like you said, of not actually knowing, some of his works, and also, having an ear to really hear his influence, because you have that, you know what I'm saying? Because first of all, you produce, so You can hear it as soon as you hear it.
He's an influence of mine. I mean,
there we go.
I mean, it's
there we go.
The only thing that I could say
I can keep going.
that he may have a point on as far as is his actual
hits.
No, I wouldn't even say hits. His popularity. His popularity. I mean that's.
He's got a
that
niche.
just happens when somebody passes away. People kind of delve into their catalog.
Right.
With Dilla though, there's a lot of stuff that he produced that you may not be familiar with, and you like it, and then you listen or figure out or find out that he actually produced that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and to what Sean said, his influence extends way past that. Like even his work he did with, say, 𝐀𝐿𝐲 𝐲.
Yeah.
You can do 7 Degrees of Separation. 𝐀𝐿𝐲 influenced Outkast. Outkast influenced
everybody.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, and that's just one example of his influence and where it extended.
Busta
I mean, he's part of the Soul Aquarium.
Yep.
He did a lot of shit with Erykah Badu,
Yeah.
Common,
Janet Jackson.
These are people that are touring right now still to this day with that same sound and influence. So
I think 𝐀𝐁𝐿𝐲, when you said that was, definitely one of the ones that, that came to my mind.
I think the interesting thing about Dilla, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, is that his production style wasn't simply just hip hop. Like he had a lot of dance feel to it. He had a house feel to it. He's from Detroit. Had that type of
𝐀𝐁
sound.
from Canada, so
yeah. But he was a sample producer, but also he didn't use quantize.
Right.
Questlove was influenced by him.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like
Soul Aquarium.
Yeah, the Roots,
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon, Beyond,
Yeah.
like every hip hop band that wants to be good, like it's the Roots. So yeah, it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than that. And then it's 𝐀𝐁𝐿𝐲 was just the first name that I came up with. And the reason why I say 𝐀𝐁𝐿𝐲 is because 𝐀𝐁𝐿𝐲 has a very particular type of sound.
Yep.
And he's a producer that can do so many different styles of music.
Which I love.
And Dilla was the same way, but just in a different generation. And he just happened to be the originator of doing the stuff he was doing, really. A lot of it, anyways.
Far Side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about that. Like, because I used to love the Far Side when I was a kid. I remember coming up.
You probably didn't even know Dilla produced some of that shit.
At that time, no.
Especially 𝐿𝐲 California.
Yeah, at that time,
album,
no.
Go back and listen to it if you haven't revisited it in a while.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Busta Rhymes fan, so, you think about...
Dilla was on all his early albums.
Yeah, man. And he's got fire.
And not to even take away from his own group.
Slum Village.
Slum
Village.
Yeah.
I mean, the shit he was doing with them.
Yeah.
I mean, Champion Sound is a great album with him and Madlib. There's Madlib, so I mean,
who actually you could put? I see your point.
Madlib actually, they had I can't even speak on it because I don't remember it. But Madlib has talked about Dilla what's the word I'm looking for?
Extensively.
Extensively.
Yeah, there we go.
And his influence just in how they work together. So check that out. So,
and that connects Freddie Gibbs.
Man. Yeah, I mean, I just thought
you can connect him to all this shit that's going on right now.
Yeah.
But he did. But to your point, he never really had any major popular records. Like nothing that was crazy popular. I mean, Erykah Badu's "Didn't You Know" was a huge record. But outside of, I mean, what were other? I mean, some common joints, but I mean, they weren't like huge. Like
probably The Light would have been.
I was gonna say The Light.
Yeah,
The Light was a big
Common.
record. That was a big record.
Run In by Far Side.
Running, yeah,
Definitely Running.
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
But there wasn't no like produced 50 Cent or Jay-Z or anything like that. It was always like dope artists that weren't like mainstream artists necessarily, but the mainstream artists do appreciate him. So
I mean, when you hear people talk about him, like to me that's that's where you truly hear about how great he was. Like people like Q-Tip, there's an interview with him he did with Red Bull where he talks about hearing some of his beats on a cassette that Busta had, and he was just blown away by what he heard on the cassette. So there's a lot of OGs that have definitely paid homage to him